Hey guys, this is Jimmy and I Believe, and we're excited for the 2020 Appalachian Trail hiking season. We've got a lot of hikers that we know about that's already out on the trail. We've met some through the telephone, actually visited some, came and visited us out of Nashville, and we're excited about being there. We're getting a later start this year. We started last year, February the 15th, with Dudley and his wife at Springer Mountain. I had some issues. I had to have cataract surgery on an eye, but we're ready to go. So we'll be out on the Appalachian Trail this coming Tuesday, and we'll be near Fontana. And I remember being there in 2014 with you, and it snowed the next day.
Yeah, and we'll be meeting Screwball on that day.
Yeah, he's already out on the trail. If you want to look at his YouTube, Screwball, and he's one of them that we'll meet, but he'll be the first one that we meet. But I tell you what I'm really excited about today. This just worked out a perfect way, and you know what I always say, it just doesn't just happen. God makes it happen. And we're visiting some friends today. We came to Louisville, Kentucky. I hadn't been there.
To get some good hugs.
To get some good hugs. And we have somebody that we want to show you. And you that have viewed our channel and been part of our channel, you're going to know these people because they was part of the 2019 Thru Hiker season. So I'm going to change cameras, let her cut it off, and I'm going to take the camera. Sherry's going to get with them, and we're going to talk to them for a few minutes. How about that?
That'll work.
Well, here we are. We're in Louisville, Kentucky. Called some friends the other day and set up a meeting. In fact, she had some maps of mine, so we had to get together anyway so I could find out how I'm getting around the Appalachian Trail. For those that are just coming to our channel, I'm going to let them introduce themselves, and then we're going to talk about their hike in 2019.
I'm Bluegrass.
I'm Sunshine, Bluegrass's wife.
Okay.
And I'm getting there.
Getting there, not getting there.
Right.
Getting there.
Getting there. Okay, tell us when y'all started your hike last year.
We started the approach trail February 18th of last year.
And getting there?
And I started the approach trail on February 12th.
February the 12th. And we met y'all just a couple of days later at Woody Gap, or right before Woody Gap, I believe. And was around fresh ground. I remember y'all was eating spaghetti when I met y'all, and y'all was with Halo. Not getting there at the time, but y'all two were. And then we all ended up together later in the hike. And we came down here, like I say, to visit and have dinner today. And we got talking about some things, and I asked them if I could interview them and talk about their hike last year because they didn't make it all the way. And I want to talk about that a little bit. Tell me a little bit, first of all, Sunshine and Bluegrass, how y'all's hike went in the beginning, and let's get to the point that when you came home.
Go ahead.
So we started together. The whole idea was that we would do the whole thing together. But around mile 40, I started having some foot issues that just only got worse and worse and worse. And by the time I had identified what the problem was and got myself in better shoes, the damage was just done. And the only way to solve it was to stop hiking.
At what mile?
Get over there. Get over there so they'll see who this is. Because I
Come on.
believe she's going to be part of this.
Mile did you quit?
I quit at 8:44.8.
So she went 800 miles on
Yeah.
a bad foot.
That was a lot of denial and just persistence. But yeah, so I got off the trail, and what we ended up doing is, long story short, I supported Bluegrass as he continued to hike, and we had a Dodge Caravan with stow and go seats, put all the seats back and like down in the back, put a Walmart air mattress back there, and I just supported him all the way up until we got to Pawling, New York, which is 1448.3, and that's where we decided that we were done, and we skipped up to Katahdin to summit together and celebrate the end of our own hike, and that was that.
Yeah, we came out and saw y'all after you was become a trail angel.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about that in just a few minutes, but we're going to get in their story about where, how his and where you got off the trail and all. Getting there. Tell us a little bit about yours.
Yeah, I mean, I crossed paths with Bluegrass and Sunshine for the first time would have been in Franklin, but really it was only from Molly's Ridge and through the Smokies to about Max Patch that we were all hiking together. We ended up sort of parting ways in Hot Springs because I ended up getting sick, and I was actually bedridden for the better part of 2 weeks with like bronchitis, and so from Hot Springs onward, I was pretty much solo, and I made it up to Parisburg, where just by that point I was just done.
Okay. Now you stayed in contact with them during
Yes, sir.
all that time,
Yeah,
I believe.
yeah, we were
Is that
texting
right?
back and forth, but they were a couple of weeks ahead of me.
Okay.
So
And then you decided that that was the time you wanted to go home. Now, what I'm getting to, guys, and this is the gist of why I'm doing this today. I talked to them during lunch, and I asked them if we could interview and talk about their feelings about not completing what they started out doing and how that has affected their lives, and if they want to share something with the people that are starting this year that might not realize that they may not finish the complete thing this year. But I want you to share some of the things y'all shared with me over lunch, because I think it's a very important part of Appalachian Trail through hiking. Sunshine and Bluegrass, I'll let y'all go ahead and share a little bit about what y'all shared with me.
The thing that I would start with is that if you've made it to Springer, to even get your tag, to think about all of the things that you've sacrificed and planned just to get that far. You've already made it 90% further than anyone else who's talked about doing the AT. You actually made it there, and if you quit on the first day or if you quit on the 100th day, like, take into account like all of the planning that you put into that and just how much work it was. Like, Katahdin is not the end-all be-all. Like, you've learned 1,000 things just getting to Springer, and then 1,000 more by the first day and by the second day. Like, you're already further than you've ever been from a personal standpoint. So
How's the emotions though, Sunshine? Tell me a little bit about that, you know, going through the emotions of finally saying, hey, we're going to go home. But and you shared to me about the positiveness that came out of all that. So share a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, we have a really good friend, shout out to Papa Bear. He brought up this concept to us while we were all three still hiking together, that there is the mountain Katahdin, but then there's also kind of this proverbial metaphorical Katahdin in your mind. And a lot of us summit that mental Katahdin before we even ever get to Maine, or if we might not get to Maine. And Papa Bear pointed out to Bluegrass and I that we are each other's Katahdin, and that going out there to do it together and to just share that experience and that communication and everything together, we had already summited and learned all the things that we didn't even know, but that's what we needed to learn. So yeah, I mean, if, like you asked us at lunch today, if we have any regrets for not finishing, and we said 0.
I know.
And so, you know, not everybody hikes with somebody, but everybody has a reason that they're doing it. And you might realize that, you know, you're pushing yourself too far, or you're putting this obligation or this, like, you look at it as success or failure, but really you've already succeeded at the thing that was your, like, undercover mission all along.
yeah.
It's about the journey, not
Yeah.
the mountain Katahdin.
Yeah, because Katahdin is one mountain, but you climb hundreds of mountains before you get there, and that Katahdin is just another one.
And I'm going to just push this a little further. When you started, the day you started, how much confidence did you have that you would make it to Katahdin?
Oh,
Overly confident.
Yeah.
110%?
yeah.
Or more?
100% of people think that they are the 25% who finish.
On day one. Yeah.
Of day
Yeah.
one. But I you know, I still want to get the message out that you didn't want to go commit suicide. You didn't want to lay down and cry about that you didn't finish and be somber about it, because you turned this around to a very positive experience, because you said that, in fact, I think I asked a question something like, what did you gain out of all of this by doing this? And you're both, all three of y'all said you're a different person today. You wouldn't have been that if you wouldn't have done the miles you did.
Yeah.
So we just want to share with those out there that's starting, hey, we hope you all finish. I hope everybody that ever sets foot on Springer. But if you don't finish, there's life after the trail.
Yes.
And it's a lot of
not
good
every-
memories that will be there for a lifetime.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna get in there. Tell me a little bit about yours as far as the experience of when you got off. And
Oh, yeah, I mean, getting off, really kind of like with Sunshine and Bluegrass, I was probably aware of it a week, 2 weeks before I sort of finally pulled the plug. We talked about sort of the mental game, and there's a certain aspect of the mental game that by mid-Virginia I was starting to lose, especially being out there solo. And like what I'd mentioned, you're out there by yourself and you can get caught in sort of this mental trap, this vortex. And when you're by yourself, there's no one to sort of knock you out of it, or
so you would say, and
bring you out of your own head.
Yeah, and I want to interrupt you to just say
Sure.
this, because you and I talked about this over. You think it's very important to have somebody to hike with you to help you in that regard.
Either to have somebody with you, and you can certainly see this, and we were talking about some other YouTubers that had vlogged their hikes, but yes, they finished, but even they made frequent comments about they were on the phone half the day with their wives, their significant others, or what have you. I didn't really have that as an option. It's definitely easy especially with the accumulation of fatigue. You're dealing with physical hardships, and frankly, by the time you're in Virginia, you sort of take those in stride. But once your mental game starts to break down, your ability to continue to take things in stride so easily break down. And sort of for me, the last straw was something fairly innocuous, crossing a blowdown and just skinning my shin up. Matter of fact, I still have a scar from it. but I mean, it's something that by that point has happened to you dozens of times, but it was just like that last, on top of everything else that had sort of happened in those last couple of days. It's enough to say you don't really know what that last straw is, but it can
Usually
come.
we meet that last straw and then we hike another couple weeks.
Well, I had already hit that point where it was probably in Marion where I thought, this is not as much fun as it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And
when it
I
moves-
am sort of caught in, I knew I was trapped in my own head. Again, nobody to pull me out of it. And it occurred to me that I think I'm done. I may be done. But I was all the way to Parisburg before, I finally pulled the plug and said, and actually started texting people saying, I'm going off trail, I'm going home.
Yeah. Now, Sunshine, I do want to mention this before we cut the camera off. You became a trail angel or a supporter for your husband after you finished doing your walking or your hiking, and you've talked to me and said you wouldn't mind helping somebody over the telephone if they're helping their spouse and something like this happens, or if they're starting out and they're not hiking, say the wife's not hiking but her husband's hiking, and she's going to come out there and kind of support him on his hike, you'd be willing to be somebody on the phone and help that person.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
So y'all can get in touch with me, guys, through the, just leave a comment if you want to get a hold to Sunshine,
Yeah.
and then I can put y'all together.
Yeah, it's a whole other dynamic that talking to somebody who's done it is definitely like the best preparation, because it's a very unique situation. So yeah, I would love to do that.
I asked y'all a while ago, do you think you're ever going to go back on the Appalachian Trail? I wished I would have had the camera on when I asked that. And what did y'all tell me?
We said if we had the thousands of dollars, we would be there tomorrow.
Right. And I asked you if you thought you would ever maybe hike it again. You said yes, definitely.
Oh, yeah.
And you feel like that you're going to hike every step of the Appalachian Trail before you die. Absolutely is what you said.
We got the rest of our lives. Why
So
not?
And how often do it's been what, 8 months for y'all or something like that since you've got off the trail? Or,
Yeah,
but how
it's
often
July
do
7th.
how often do you think about the trail?
Every day.
It's in the
Every day.
background all the
Well,
time.
let me say this. They
Every-
have a blue blaze painted on a tree bark above their toilet. So I think they think about it every day.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, I'm never not thinking about it. Even like it does. Like you'll smell something that reminds you, or it's it's there forever.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
glad that we came today. I'm glad that we turned what some people would see as a negative into a positive, because I can see that I don't see how you could be any happier if you would have touched the sign and never had any miles in between not walking than what you've learned or what you've experienced. And I know getting there, he's going through some changes, getting another job, not sure what he's going to do. He may be on the trail next week with us too. So, but any of y'all
Trail's
want to
still out
say anything else, because we got about 5 minutes or more on the camera before I'd really want to cut it off. You want to make any other comments or something we've talked about today that you think needs to be said?
The one thing that I would stress to everybody, because I was a huge culprit of this, is like, don't worry. Just
Yeah.
stop worrying.
Chill out.
I was like anxiety ridden, time equals money. We only have a finite budget. Like we have to make every minute count. Don't worry. The trail's gonna be there. Everyone you meet ebbs and flows like the ocean. You're gonna see people again, whether you think you will or not.
Yeah.
Like, enjoy every lunch spot, take naps. Like, as long as you've got the food to make it to the next town, like, don't stress over how many miles and how long it's going to take you to get there. As long as you've got food, then you're good. You're safe.
Yeah, think about what your future self would regret not doing now, and do those things. like I thought about that sometimes. Like, my future self will regret not stopping to take a picture of that pretty thing,
Yeah.
or spending an extra 30 minutes talking to this really interesting person, or
Take a side trail if you want to.
yeah.
Don't be a stickler about every like Charles Bunyan is a big one in the Smokies. Like, yes, you can take Charles Bunyan and miss one blaze. You're missing a quarter mile or
Yeah,
something.
big deal.
Chill out.
Yeah.
Well,
I like it. I love it.
I mean, yeah, be patient. Be patient with yourself. Be patient with your hike, and be patient enough to allow yourself to enjoy the things that you enjoy. Particularly, early on, it's just sort of the physical struggle of coming to terms with rain, or it's cold, or it's this or it's that. But north of Damascus, once you're into Virginia, somewhere around mile 500, you're getting your hiker legs, and this is kind of what the Virginia Blues are really all about. There's the novelty is ebbed away. You've worn the new off of the experience. The reality of what you're trying to do is really setting in. Because of that, people start trying to crank out the big miles, and at that point, and that was part of my problem, by the way, is 500 miles in, and I still wasn't somebody who could casually do a 20-mile day. And that, it really bothered me. And that fed into the mentality that I was wrestling with. And I became impatient.
People don't talk
I
about
didn't
how the
know.
trail can be so competitive.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're
just
right.
because, and that's, if I were to, you asked about it, if I had one piece of advice to give somebody thinking about doing a through hike, it would be patient. Be patient with yourself and allow yourself to enjoy the things that you enjoy, because otherwise the AT is just grueling.
It'll punish you enough.
Okay, I think I'm back on, and I'll have to splice that up. So, Sunshine, you said something. Now my screen looks a little different, but you said something. I was going to ask you one other thing. That you're reading your blog
Yeah.
every day today. That when you hike, that's kind of cool. I've never heard anybody say that.
Yeah,